The Galactic Council had always viewed Earth with a mixture of dread and fascination. To the members of the Council, the planet was like a ticking bomb, a place where life and death waged a constant battle for supremacy. Known throughout the galaxy as a death world, Earth was a realm where survival was an everyday struggle. Yet despite the countless deadly predators, shifting landscapes, and environments so hostile they could kill with a mere misstep, humanity had flourished. The species, born from a planet that seemed more cursed than blessed, had adapted to every possible threat, and over time, they became the most resilient beings in the galaxy. The rest of the universe watched in awe and fear as humanity continued to rise, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Earth's wildlife was not something the Council could easily ignore. From the giant, carnivorous beasts that roamed the vast forests to the insects so venomous that a single sting could be fatal, Earth had birthed creatures that would terrorize any other species. But humanity, a species that had evolved in this very chaos, had learned to live alongside these dangers. They had learned to fight, to adapt, to survive. Over millennia, humans had forged their way through these deadly trials, developing tools, technology, and weapons that allowed them to conquer any obstacle. But the question always remained, why had they not left this violent world? The Council couldn't understand why they hadn't reached out to other species, why they had stayed on their violent, unpredictable planet. The answer was simple, yet unfathomable to those who hadn't lived through such harsh conditions. Earth was their home, and they were made for it. In the heart of the Galactic Council, a tense meeting was taking place. Representatives from over a dozen species sat in a massive chamber, their forms as diverse as the stars themselves. The humans had sent their envoy, a team of diplomats and strategists, to address the Council's concerns. The Council had just received an unexpected report. Humans, despite their survival on such a brutal planet, had made a bold decision. They were planning to leave Earth. They were going to abandon the world that had shaped them, the world that had made them who they were. To the Council, this news was as shocking as it was incomprehensible. How could any species willingly depart from a world so filled with danger? Why leave the place that had forged their strength? This decision didn't just confuse the Council, it terrified them. The Council members, particularly the elder races who had long since abandoned their home planets for safer, more stable environments, couldn't understand the humans' drive. They questioned it. What could possibly compel a species to leave a planet like Earth? One of the elder Varaxian counselors asked, his voice thick with skepticism. Surely, you do not believe you will survive the unknown dangers of the galaxy. A chorus of murmurs followed, with several species agreeing that the humans' departure was madness. After all, no species in the galaxy had ever survived a death world and ventured out into the wider universe without being wiped out by the many threats lurking beyond their homeworld. But the human representatives were unshaken. Their leader, a seasoned military strategist named Commander Ilara, stood tall before the Council, her eyes unwavering. "We leave because we are ready," she said simply. "Earth has made us stronger than you can imagine. We've survived because we learned to adapt to the worst possible conditions. The galaxy is vast, and there are far greater threats than anything we've faced on our planet. But we are not afraid of the unknown. We were made for this. We were made to conquer." Her words, though simple, resonated with a quiet strength that sent a ripple through the chamber. The Council didn't know what to make of it. The humans had faced the worst the universe could throw at them. And now they were saying that they were ready for more. As the meeting continued, the members of the Council debated fiercely. The Varaxians argued that the humans would not last in the harsh environments of the stars, where even the air could be poisoned or the gravity too extreme for them to survive. The Altarians, a species that had long ago perfected the art of peaceful coexistence with the galaxy, were more concerned with the humans' sudden shift in attitude. "What will become of Earth?" One Altarian asked. "Have you truly outgrown the world that shaped you? What happens when you no longer have the daily fight for survival? Will you lose what makes you human?" But Ilara's response was firm. We haven't outgrown Earth. We've conquered it, and now we're ready to conquer more. The Council, for the first time, was faced with a species they couldn't easily predict or control. Humanity's past, their relentless pursuit of survival against all odds, made them an enigma in the galaxy. They were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was both their greatest strength and their most terrifying trait. As the session came to an end, there was no consensus, only a deep, uneasy silence. The humans were leaving Earth, and the Council had no idea what that meant for the galaxy. Were they a new force to be reckoned with, or would their ambitious plans crumble beneath the weight of the vast unknown? The only certainty was that humanity was no longer just a survivor of its death world. It was becoming something much larger. But Earth had not yet revealed all its secrets. The Council knew this. They had seen glimpses of humanity's potential in past encounters, but they had never understood the depths of their resilience. As the human fleet prepared to depart, a strange feeling began to creep into the minds of the Council members. They had underestimated humanity, and they were about to learn the true cost of that mistake. The human fleet was massive, a sight unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was a testament to their strength and ingenuity, each ship a product of years of relentless innovation and war. As the first ship, the Vanguard, took off from Earth's atmosphere, the Council could only watch in awe. The ships didn't just leave Earth. They cut through the atmosphere with a force that spoke of a species that had learned to master their planet's harshest elements. The sky was no longer a barrier. It was simply another challenge to be conquered. As the fleet ascended, the last few glimpses of Earth disappeared, but it was clear that humanity had left its mark. The Council had never expected this, never anticipated the sheer willpower of a species that had turned a death world into its birthplace. And now, with the stars stretching out before them, humanity was preparing for something even greater than survival. The galaxy had never seen a species like humanity, and the Council could only wait and wonder what the future held. The unyielding planet that had forged them was no longer their home. It was just the beginning. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Tensions had risen to an all-time high as a strange transmission echoed through the vast halls of the Council's meeting chambers. It wasn't a distress signal or a plea for help. Far from it. It was a simple, direct message from Earth, a planet long considered dangerous and unpredictable. The humans, a species who had lived for centuries on a world where death was always just one misstep away, had made an astonishing decision. They were leaving. They were departing from their death world, to explore the stars, to venture beyond the harsh environments that had shaped them into the most resilient beings in the galaxy. The message echoed through the chambers. Humanity is ready. We will conquer the stars. This single bold statement stunned the entire Council. The Varaxians, an ancient species known for their wisdom and cautious approach to the universe, exchanged uneasy glances. The Altarians, a race that prided themselves on peace and diplomacy, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. How could humans, who had always been seen as a species too wild, too unpredictable to thrive in the vastness of space, suddenly announce they were ready to leave their deadly planet behind? It made no sense. The very nature of Earth, with its brutal wildlife and unforgiving environments, had been considered a significant barrier to humanity's advancement. Yet now, the humans were declaring they were more than ready to face whatever lay beyond. The transmission continued, its stark simplicity filling the room. The humans spoke not of fear, but of determination. They spoke of their survival, of how they had learned to thrive where others would have perished. And they spoke of their destiny to expand into the galaxy, to prove that their strength came not only from the planet that had shaped them, but from within themselves. We are not just survivors, the message said. We are conquerors. We will show the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength. The Council was left in stunned silence. The Varaxians were the first to speak, their voices heavy with doubt. How can a species that has barely begun to understand the vastness of the galaxy hope to survive the countless threats that await them? One of the counselors questioned. Earth was one thing, But the stars are far more dangerous. No species has ever made the jump from a death world to the unknown expanse and survived. His words echoed through the chamber, casting a shadow of fear over the room. But the humans, as always, remained unshaken. Commander Ilara, the leader of humanity's delegation, stood before the council with calm confidence. She was a battle-hardened veteran, having led her people through countless struggles. Her voice was steady and firm as she addressed the council. We did not survive Earth by accident. We survived because we are not like any other species you have encountered. We do not just fight to survive. We fight to grow. The galaxy will test us, just as Earth did. But we are ready. We were made for this. The council members were stunned by her conviction. There was no fear in her voice, no hesitation. She spoke as though she had already conquered the stars. Yet the other species still had their doubts. The Krothak, a ruthless empire known for its military might, sneered at the humans' words. You speak of survival as if it's a badge of honor, one of their representatives growled. But in the stars, survival is only the beginning. Power, strategy, dominance, these are what matter. You think you can compete with us, with the Varaxians, the Altarians. You cannot even fathom the dangers that await you. Ilara's gaze never wavered. We understand danger better than anyone in this room, and we will meet it head-on. We do not need your approval or your permission. The stars are ours to claim. Her words were simple but packed with a force that sent a ripple through the council. For the first time, the council members realized that the humans were not asking for permission. They were telling the galaxy what they intended to do. The debate continued for hours, with the council members divided. Some argued that the humans' departure could upset the balance of power in the galaxy. Others worried that the humans would be overwhelmed by the challenges they would face. But in the end, there was no stopping them. Humanity's decision was made. The fleet was being prepared, and Earth's most advanced ships, equipped with the latest technology and designed to withstand the harshest conditions, were ready to depart. The humans would leave Earth, and nothing could change that. As the council session came to a close, the members were left with a sense of uncertainty. Could humanity really survive in the vast, dangerous galaxy? Or would they meet their end, overwhelmed by the many threats lurking in the dark corners of space? There were no answers, only questions. But one thing was clear. The galaxy was about to witness a new chapter in the story of the human race. Whether they were ready or not, humanity was leaving Earth, and the stars would be their next battlefield. Days passed, and the fleet began its journey. The massive ships, each one a testament to humanity's ingenuity and strength, rose into the sky from Earth's surface. For the first time in centuries, the planet that had birthed humanity was left behind. It was an emotional moment, but also a moment of triumph. The humans had conquered their world, and now they were venturing into the unknown, carrying the lessons of survival with them. Earth would always be a part of them, but it was no longer their future, it was merely their past. As the fleet moved further from Earth, the council watched in silence. There was a sense of awe, but also a sense of fear. What if the humans were right? What if they truly were ready to face whatever the galaxy could throw at them? And if they were successful, if humanity truly could survive the galaxy's dangers, what would that mean for the rest of the galaxy? Could the other species compete with humanity's strength and resolve? The answer, no one knew. But one thing was certain, the humans had made a bold decision. A decision that would change the course of galactic history. And as they sailed into the stars, they did not look back. They looked forward, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Galaxy had underestimated them once, but they would never make that mistake again. The humans had made their bold decision, and they were not going to stop until they had proven that no challenge was too great, no enemy too powerful. The stars were waiting, and humanity was ready to claim them. In the end, the boldness of the humans was their greatest weapon. They weren't just leaving Earth. They were leaving behind the idea that they were a species bound by the limits of their homeworld. They were ready for something far greater. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but it was about to find out. The galaxy had always watched humanity with a mix of fascination and fear. Known for their resilience and adaptability, humans had made a name for themselves, not by sheer might or advanced technology alone, but by an unyielding spirit that seemed to defy the odds. But now, they were facing something that no one had ever anticipated, an unprecedented challenge that would test their strength in ways they had never imagined. The Galactic Council, a collective of the most powerful and ancient species in the universe, had always kept an eye on Earth, a planet known as a death world due to its brutal and unforgiving nature. Yet, the humans had survived it all. And now, they were ready for something far greater. The test of strength had been issued, and no one knew how it would end. It all began when a mysterious message was broadcasted across the galaxy. It was not from any known species or race. It was simply a symbol, an encrypted code that no one could decipher. The message was clear, though. A challenge had been thrown. The test would be a battle unlike any other, an intricate trial designed to test the very limits of a species' strength, not just physically but mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. To the Galactic Council, it was an opportunity to see if humanity was truly as strong as it claimed. To the humans, it was a call to prove that they could endure anything the galaxy had to offer. The Council had sent representatives from various species to monitor the test. The Varaxians, known for their wisdom and intellect, had little faith that the humans could succeed. They viewed the challenge as a fool's game, a way to expose the weaknesses of a species that had barely scratched the surface of the galaxy. The Altarians, on the other hand, were more concerned with the psychological impact this test would have on humanity. They feared that if the humans failed, it would crush their spirit, a dangerous outcome for a species that was as unpredictable as it was determined. But the humans, led by their strongest warriors, were undeterred. They viewed this test as an opportunity to prove not just to the Council, but to themselves that they were ready for whatever the galaxy had in store. The test, however, was not one they could easily prepare for. No one knew exactly what it would entail, but rumors swirled that it would be a series of trials designed to break them, trials that would challenge every fiber of their being. The first trial began under the harsh light of a distant star, on a barren planet with no atmosphere. The humans were dropped onto the surface, and for hours they struggled against intense gravity, extreme temperatures, and the lack of oxygen. Their bodies screamed in protest, but they pushed on, their determination unwavering. Some of them began to falter, collapsing from exhaustion, but the others rallied around them, lifting them up and urging them to keep moving. The trial was not just about physical endurance. It was about teamwork, about proving that humanity was not just a collection of individuals, but a united force capable of overcoming any obstacle. The Varaxians watched in silence, their skepticism slowly beginning to fade. They had expected the humans to collapse under the pressure, but instead they were pushing forward, showing a level of resilience that was almost alien to the Council members. The Altarians, who had been quietly observing from the sidelines, were intrigued. There was something in the humans, persistence that they had never seen before, a will to fight, not just for survival, but for victory. As the humans completed the first trial, the second one began. This time, they were thrust into a series of complex puzzles, each more difficult than the last. The puzzles were not just about logic. They required creativity, strategy, and a deep understanding of the world around them. The humans had no knowledge of the rules beforehand, but they adapted quickly. They communicated, strategized, and solved each puzzle with a calm and collected determination. The Altarians, who had prided themselves on their intellectual prowess, watched with growing concern. The humans, despite their lack of knowledge, were succeeding where even the most advanced minds in the galaxy had failed. The Varaxians were no longer certain. They had expected the humans to falter under the weight of the unknown, but instead they were proving themselves to be quick learners, capable of outthinking and outmaneuvering their opponents. There was no sign of panic, no hesitation. The humans adapted, each one playing their part in the collective effort to win. It was becoming clear to the council that they were not dealing with a species that could be easily dismissed. The third trial was the most dangerous of all. It was a test of strength, literal strength. The humans were thrown into a massive arena, surrounded by creatures that were designed to kill. The creatures were faster, stronger, and more vicious than anything Earth had ever produced. The humans had only their weapons, their skills, and their will to survive. The arena was a brutal battleground, where the only rule was survival. Blood was spilled, but the humans fought with a ferocity that stunned their enemies. They were not just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy. The Altarians, who had watched the humans' progress with growing concern, now felt a sense of awe. They had underestimated the humans, thinking them too small and weak to survive in the galaxy. But now, it was clear that the humans were not to be taken lightly. Their courage, their ability to adapt, and their fierce determination had brought them this far. The Varaxians, who had once been dismissive of humanity's chances, were now forced to reconsider their views. They had always believed that intellect and strategy were the keys to survival, but the humans were proving that raw strength, combined with an unbreakable will, could overcome any challenge. As the final trial began, the humans found themselves facing an even more insidious test. This time, it was not physical strength or intellect that would determine their success. It was their spirit. They were confronted with visions of their darkest fears, their deepest regrets, and their most painful memories. The trial was not just a test of endurance. It was a test of character, of the very essence of what it meant to be human. The humans faced their fears with courage, confronting the darkness inside them and emerging stronger for it. The council watched, stunned by the depth of their resolve. The humans had not just passed the test, they had conquered it. When the trial ended, the galaxy was forever changed. The council, once skeptical of humanity's strength, now viewed them with a mixture of awe and respect. The humans had proven that they were not just survivors of their harsh world. They were a force to be reckoned with, capable of overcoming any challenge the galaxy could throw at them. And though the council had intended to test humanity, they had learned something far more important. That strength is not just about power or intelligence. It is about the will to never give up, the courage to face the impossible, and the unbreakable spirit that refuses to be broken. Humanity had passed the test of strength, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The stars had always been a source of wonder for the inhabitants of the galaxy, but now they had become a symbol of something far darker. For years, the galaxy had known peace, an uneasy peace that everyone hoped would last. The different species, some ancient, some young, had learned to coexist under the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council. But a shift had begun, something small, something subtle, that no one could have predicted. It started on a distant planet, a world that had been ignored by most of the galaxy. This planet, known as Selrith, had been the home of a species unlike any other. A species that had quietly watched the galaxy for centuries, but had never been part of its political landscape. Now, they were emerging from the shadows. No one knew what to expect from the inhabitants of Selrith. They had always kept to themselves, hidden from the prying eyes of the council. The Selrithians were different, tall, with dark, metallic skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. They had eyes that could pierce through the thickest fog and minds that were far beyond the average species in the galaxy. For years, they had been content to observe, gathering knowledge from afar. But now, they had made their first move. The Galactic Council received a message, a simple transmission with no return address. It was encrypted, of course, but when decoded, the message was as chilling as it was confusing. "Prepare yourselves," it said. "The time has come for the galaxy to witness the true strength of Selrith." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving nothing more than an eerie silence. No one knew what to make of it. Was it a warning? The threat? Or something else entirely? The council convened immediately, and for the first time in years, there was a sense of panic among the members. The Varaxians, known for their wisdom and rationality, were unnerved. They had always prided themselves on their understanding of the universe, yet this species was a mystery to them. The Altarians, with their sharp minds and quick thinking, began to formulate theories, but none of them made sense. The Exelrithians had never shown interest in conflict before. They were not known for their aggression. So, why now? Why had they suddenly decided to make a move? As the tension spread through the council, an uneasy calm settled over the galaxy. Ships were being prepared for a possible confrontation, and ambassadors were dispatched to Xelrith to try to understand what was happening. But there was one problem. The Xelrithians were not responding. No one could get through to them. The silence continued, stretching into weeks, then months. And during this time, strange events began to unfold across the galaxy. Small, unexplainable incidents, ships disappearing without a trace, communications being disrupted, and strange energy fluctuations in distant star systems. At first, these incidents were dismissed as coincidences, but as they began to occur more frequently, suspicion turned into fear. The tension was palpable. Something was coming, and no one knew exactly what it was. Back on Earth, the humans had been watching the events unfold with growing concern. They had always been a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy, but even they had to admit that this was unlike anything they had ever faced. The Xelrithians were a mystery, and the silence they had chosen to adopt was as unsettling as it was dangerous. The humans, however, were not ones to sit idly by. They had seen their fair share of threats, and they had always risen to the occasion. This time, they were no different. They began preparing, training, and gathering their forces. They knew that the tension was rising, and they would need to be ready for whatever came next. Days turned into weeks, and the rising tension began to take its toll. Diplomatic channels remained silent, and the Council's once unified front began to crack. Some of the species began to panic, fearing that they were on the brink of war. Others, however, began to grow more determined. The Altarians, with their knack for strategy, began to devise plans for a potential attack, though they knew that such a course of action could be disastrous. The Varaxians, more cautious by nature, began seeking ways to peacefully resolve the situation, but even they were growing anxious. No one had ever faced an enemy that refused to communicate. One day, a strange signal appeared, unlike any transmission the galaxy had ever received. It was coming from the Xelrithian homeworld, but it wasn't a message, it was a warning. The signal, though distorted, conveyed a clear message. We are coming. The tone was chilling, almost as if the Xelrithians were daring the galaxy to do something about it. The signal cut off abruptly, leaving the Council in stunned silence. What did it mean? Was it a sign of aggression, or was it just another puzzle to be solved? As the days passed, the fear and uncertainty spread. The Council knew they had to act quickly, but no one could agree on the best course of action. The Varaxians suggested sending a diplomatic envoy to the Xelrithians, hoping to negotiate a peaceful solution, but the Altarians were skeptical. They believed that the Xelrithians were preparing for something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Meanwhile, the humans, driven by a sense of duty and urgency, began to mobilize. They knew that the rising tension could explode at any moment, and they needed to be ready to defend themselves, no matter what. The galaxy was on the brink of something that no one could fully understand. The silence from the Xelrithians was deafening, and the tension was unbearable. It was as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. And then, in the dead of night, it happened. A fleet of ships, dark and sleek, emerged from the shadows of a nearby star system. It was the Xelrithians. Their ships were unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Massive, with angular designs and energy shields that seemed to shimmer with a dark energy. They appeared without warning, and before anyone could react, they were on the move. Their destination, unknown. The council, paralyzed by shock, scrambled to respond. The humans, however, were ready. They had prepared for this moment, and they launched their own fleet into the fray, determined to protect their place in the galaxy. The tension had reached its breaking point. The Calrithians had made their move, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The rising tension had finally erupted into a full-blown crisis, and the fate of the galaxy now rested on the choices made in the coming days. Would there be war, or was there still hope for peace? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: the rising tension had changed everything. In the vast reaches of the galaxy, where countless civilizations existed under the protection of the Galactic Council, there was one thing that no one had expected, a force that would emerge from the most unlikely of places. It was a time of peace, or so it seemed. The various species had learned to coexist, sharing their knowledge and resources, but beneath this veneer of unity, something far more dangerous was slowly brewing. Among the countless star systems, one planet, Earth, had long been underestimated. The humans, despite their reputation as a young and inexperienced species, had quietly grown in strength. No one had seen it coming, not the Viraxians, not the Altarians, and certainly not the Calrithians. The humans had always been resilient. They had faced countless trials, wars, disease, and natural disasters. But each time they had emerged stronger. Yet even they could not have predicted the event that would soon unfold. A mysterious signal had arrived, originating from deep within the uncharted regions of the galaxy. It was a cryptic message, barely comprehensible, but its tone was unmistakable, urgent and threatening. The Galactic Council convened to discuss the implications of this new development, but there was one problem. No one knew who had sent the message, and no one could understand why it was directed at Earth. The message was simple, but its content was enough to send chills down the spine of even the most battle-hardened species. The time of reckoning has arrived. Earth will not survive. That was all. No further explanation, no sign of who was behind it. The Council had dismissed it initially, assuming it to be some sort of trap or hoax. But the humans, determined not to be caught off guard, took the message seriously. They knew that if someone was targeting them, they would need to act swiftly. For weeks, there was silence. The Council continued to argue over the meaning of the message, but the humans remained vigilant. They secretly began fortifying their defenses, preparing for something they could not yet comprehend. Ships were repaired, weapons were upgraded, and new technologies were developed, all in the shadows. It was a race against time. And then the unexpected happened. Without warning, the attackers arrived. Without warning, the attackers arrived. It wasn't just a single fleet. It was an armada, a vast and powerful force, unlike anything Earth had ever faced. The ships were massive, their hulls black as the void itself, with weapons that could obliterate entire cities in an instant. The humans were caught off guard, but they were not unprepared. They had anticipated a threat, though they had never imagined something so large, so powerful. The attack began without mercy. Cities were struck, spaceports destroyed, and communication systems disrupted. The humans fought back with everything they had, but their weapons were no match for the advanced technology of the invaders. It seemed like the end for Earth, but the humans, in their desperation, did something no one had ever expected. They fought back with their greatest strength, unity. Despite the overwhelming odds, the humans rallied together. Governments, military forces, and civilians all united with a single purpose: to protect their home. The chaos of the invasion became a catalyst for the humans' unyielding resolve. The human spirit, resilient and unwavering, shone through in ways no one could have predicted. The citizens of Earth worked together in a way no other species had ever done before. They repurposed old technologies, adapting them to counter the alien threat. They worked tirelessly, day and night, creating new weapons and defenses that could hold off the invaders, even if only for a short while. As the battle raged on, something remarkable happened. The humans' response to the invasion was unlike anything the attackers had encountered. The alien forces, confident in their overwhelming superiority, had underestimated the sheer determination of the human race. They had expected to crush the humans quickly, but they had not counted on the human ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. As the invaders continued their assault, they began to notice something strange. The humans were not just fighting back, they were learning. Every attack, every move made by the invaders, was met with a countermeasure. The humans were gaining ground. The turning point came when Earth's fleet, though outnumbered, managed to breach the outer defenses of the invaders. A daring attack on one of their motherships crippled their command structure, sending the alien forces into disarray. It was a desperate move, but it paid off. The humans had struck at the heart of the invaders' operation, and the once confident attackers found themselves on the defensive. The invaders, now scrambling to regroup, underestimated the humans' ability to turn the tide in their favor. In the midst of this chaos, Earth's leaders, military and civilian alike, made a bold decision. Rather than retreat or wait for reinforcements, they chose to take the fight directly to the invaders' home base. The humans had no intention of being defeated, no matter how powerful the enemy seemed. The decision was a gamble, one that could either lead to their destruction or an unexpected victory. But the humans were determined to do whatever it took to save their planet. As the humans launched their final assault, they utilized every weapon at their disposal. Every ship, every piece of technology, every strategy they had developed came into play. The battle was fierce, but the humans, driven by their will to survive, pushed forward. They fought like no other species had ever fought before, using every advantage they had, even their sheer unpredictability. The invaders, for the first time, found themselves outmatched, caught off guard by the ferocity and ingenuity of the humans. Then, just as it seemed the tide had turned in favor of the humans, something unexpected happened. A transmission came through, but this one was different. It wasn't from the invaders. It was from their leader. The message was clear and direct. We surrender. Earth has proven its strength. We were wrong to underestimate you. The humans, exhausted but triumphant, stared in disbelief at the message. The alien forces had not only been defeated, but they had also acknowledged the strength of the human race. In a moment of pure astonishment, Earth's leaders realized the truth. They had won. They had done what no one thought was possible. Against overwhelming odds, they had achieved the impossible. The unexpected triumph of the humans sent ripples across the galaxy. No one had expected such a victory, especially not from a species so young and seemingly unprepared. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and now, they would never forget the strength and unity of the human race. The victory was not just a triumph of technology or strength. It was a testament to the resilience and spirit of humanity. The invaders, who had thought they could crush Earth without a second thought, had been shown that no matter the odds, the human will could not be broken. In the end, the humans had proven that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in overwhelming power, but in the courage to face the unknown and the will to never give up. Their unexpected triumph would be remembered for generations to come, a story of survival and victory against all odds. And the galaxy would now see Earth in a new light, no longer a young and naive species, but a force to be reckoned with.